Hey guys, welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today I have a film panel consisted of all female critics. Katie Glidewell is the one who actually brought up the idea, and she's trying to. Hang on one second. I just heard like the replay from my YouTube video streaming this, and it was like me repeating the things I was saying to myself. I was like, why am I hearing myself? But, anyways, we have three female critics right now, two until like Katie can get her internet back on. But to my right, there we go. This right is Andrea Thompson. At the bottom is Linda Lerner. And there we go. And here's Katie Glidewell from the Blonde in Front.
Yay.
Andrea writes for a Reel of One's Own, Katie for Blonde in Front, and Linda works with her husband Al with Movies and Shakers. So, guys, thank you so much for coming on to this panel on She Said. So to begin with, going around the table, I think we can start with Andrea, then go to Katie, and then Linda. What are your guys' thoughts on the film?
Who are we starting with?
You can start. I think I just go in like just in order where the boxes are. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought it was a really, really excellent, extremely well-intentioned attempt to tell a story that kind of one of those stories kind of like the Watergate that really changed a generation. Mm-hmm. And it had its flaws, but it took a very adult, non-hysterical approach, and that's been out of fashion for a bit, and it's kind of been rewarded with low box office returns. But I think it's a very essential story in spite of its own complicity in the forces they're discussing, such as we're probably going to bring up later. Brad Pitt is one of the producers. That's a whole new phenomenon. Well, not a whole new phenomenon exactly, but I think it's reflective of a more modern version of men like that basically participating in these projects as a form of image rehab.
Yeah.
So all in all, good, but we have to acknowledge that it has its own shortcomings, that it shouldn't be responsible for telling this story.
Yeah, it's weird. I remember I was going.
Be the sole person responsible.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But no, I did notice on.
Don't worry about it.
I did notice on IMDb that Brad Pitt did produce this movie, and I knew it because I saw the credits too, but also like. Apparently he's worked with Weinstein before, even at the time when he was with Angelina Jolie, like begged him not to do it, but he did it anyways. And I think it was for killing them.
Paltrow too.
Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow too, who actually Katie pointed out to me in our chat. Like I was asking her, who is the other actress outside of Ashley Judd who made an appearance in the film? It was like I believe it was Gwyneth Paltrow's voice, and I looked it up, and sure enough, it was. Which is like that's an interesting aspect of the movie where you're actually bringing on the real subjects with the real reporters brought on as screenwriters to tell their story, which gives it a level of authenticity. I thought is a little extra compared
Ashley
to
Judd is the only one who actually appears, though.
Yeah, she's the one who appears on camera, and there was
even
some
Rose McGowan. That wasn't her voice.
No, it wasn't. It was some other actress's name, if I could pull it up. But I mean, the impressions were pretty good too. They even have like a guy who impersonates Harvey Weinstein, and it was kind of in the style of if you've ever seen Election or not an Election. I'm sorry, Recounts or the Sarah Palin movie by that guy. I think his name's Jay Roach. They kind of do that thing where you can only hear their voice on the phone or the radio, but like the impersonation this guy does of Harvey Weinstein is like disturbingly on point. Like they even mix it with the real tape.
I thought it was more similar to like The Assistant, that movie that kind of obscures the predator they're discussing.
Yeah. Katie, what were your thoughts on the movie? I know when you said the whole time you're watching it, you couldn't help but think the F word in your head a bunch of times, which they actually did point out in the movie too. Like at one point, Jodie's telling Megan, all I can think is the F word, you know? I mean, I can swear on here, but yeah.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do a panel discussion and not do my review right after seeing it is because I would have probably said the word fuck as many times as I want to make sure I say her name. Ambra Batalana said the word no when she had that recorded conversation with Harvey Weinstein, trying to have Harvey Weinstein trying to get her into his hotel room. I lost track of how many times she said no. I lost track at 14 because I was just so enraged. And this is the actual audio that they had that he after the smear campaign, after she went to the police and they were able to record her, and she had that evidence, and they did this entire smear campaign on her, and they paid her $1 million for that as long as she destroyed it. It's infuriating. It angers me that this, was allowed to happen, that this led, other producers, directors, anyone in the industry, actors. There's still people that are doing it today that even when the Me Too movement had come out and people were coming out and people were getting punished and actually just brought up for the crimes that they've committed. It's like a 2-year shelf life, because then in 2020, it's like, oh, well, that happened because here's this movie this person made and it doesn't really matter. But it should matter. And I want people to see this, and I want more people to review it. And I want female journalists to review it. I want male journalists to review it. It's like, I know there have been many who just feel uncomfortable. I don't care. This is a story that needs to be told, that people need to see. And we need the allyship from everyone. The fact that, Ashley just points out that she lost an endorsement deal because she quoted the president, who then, said nasty things, and he was elected president. And you see this, and now, the way fate has it, 3 days after Trump announced he's going to be president again, or he's going to, go for the nomination and run for president. 3 days later, the movie comes out. It still shows that, what has happened to this. I know there's still litigation or stuff going on, but it's like, we need to speak up. We need, to listen. I'm sick and tired of these people thinking that, people do this for attention or they do this for money. No one is a little girl who wants to grow up and say, you know what? I want to be known for being raped. That's really what my goal is in life. That's not what people do. And it's this toxic mindset that has brought on this conversation and this mentality that it's like, these guys couldn't be doing this, or maybe they could, or maybe you need to look at and face the facts of what has been happening. And I know with you're bringing up Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is one of the guys. I know there's stuff coming up now that's happening with his children, but Brad Pitt was one of the few people in the late 90s who actually told Harvey that he would kill him if he ever did anything to Gwyneth again. And yet they still did stuff with Miramax and stuff like that. But it's just infuriating, but there are flaws with the film. There's a couple of scenes, or at least one scene I thought was a little overacted, with Lisa Bloom, where they're in a board meeting and she's like, the person being Lisa Bloom is doing this with their hands, which I thought was a little over dramatic and not needed. But I'm glad that the actual transcripts, the actual recordings, the actual people that this affected have come out and are brave enough to have their story told. And, in the end, as it said, 82 women came forward, but how many of those were silenced, and how many of those had taken their own lives? Because it's not like, this, when you are working and you're trying to, make your way into this group and to have that dream of that job and that career and that life you live taken away from you. And I know people think that it's like the money, but it says in the film, 40% of what, people make, and let me just say this. The money, $48,000 is not going to repair the damage that was done to you. The amount any of these women had, it's not going to sustain them the rest of their life. Some of this may not even cover their, bills for medical or psychological. And it just angers me that it's like the immediate, the immediate response that it's like, oh, people do this for the money. It's like no amount of money is going to take away that part of your soul that was damaged by this. And it's just these ideas that people have had, and it's just a smear campaign that has been going on for decades that I want people to really talk about. And despite the flaws in the film, I want it to be seen similar to Spotlight and All the President's Men. This is something this is true journalism. Everything that they went through, all of the research, knocking on doors, like talking to these women that still, after how many decades, did not have, like, just couldn't even have the words to talk about it because it's still affecting them. This is why people need to see that, for all the women who couldn't speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Linda, you told me this in the chat. And I was like, oh my God, I know that you used to be an investigative journalist yourself.
That's right.
How was the movie, and how accurate was it to investigative journaling? Like, was some of it over dramatic, or was it?
Yeah, but I want to go back to what Katie was saying, if you don't mind, first.
Of course. Yeah.
First of all, this is not just a Harvey Weinstein situation, because it was going on for decades and decades, ever since the movies have been made. Mm-hmm. And it is still going on. There are several people who are still, besides Harvey Weinstein, who are still in court with all of this going on. So this is, not only does it have to stop, but and this is a good movie to show it. I didn't think, having been an investigative reporter, I worked for Channel 2 News, I was the assignment editor, I had to flesh out the stories before I sent out the crews to cover. I also did several pieces for newspaper magazine type stuff. And one of them was finding Debbie Johnson, Fred Hampton's wife, after.
Sorry.
Who's that?
That's my dog.
Nice.
If I go in the other room, she'll just jab more. Here's Minnie.
Okay. But I had to find her. I found her and did a story way back when Fred Hampton's child, after the raid, was 5 years old. So I've put myself in some very, questionable situations in terms of, at that time, meeting people in places to get the stories and so on and so forth. So I understand completely these people who were looking for a career, who just wanted to be in movies so bad that they would do just about anything and not knowing how to handle it because they were so young and didn't know what to do. And I think that was that's a huge problem, because there's a network of men who know how to say things to women to make them believe that they are that important.
Yeah.
And so the NDAs as well, this NDA situation, it's not only Weinstein, but it's been used forever. And now we're beginning to understand that women can talk and not be punished for it, but they have to have a good lawyer, they have to have the media, they have to have a lot of other sources in order to, and support and numbers. That was what they pointed out in the movie. We need numbers. We don't need one person, we need a lot
and
of
a
people.
thick skin.
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
And a thick skin, I believe you said, because
I said, and a thick skin.
Yeah, because these guys had to basically put their lives and careers on the line, because, just kind of like when Trump was harassing Stormy Daniels, he had like someone in a parking lot threaten his her daughter's life or something like that. And that's kind of the fear everyone lives with. It kind of creates this Roman Empire sort of thing where the greedy ruler is treating all of his servants like crap. And that sort of mentality still goes around the entertainment, not just the entertainment industry, but politics, sports, and I think this is an important movie to see because it exposes this isn't just Weinstein. This is everyone. I mean, one structurally, one thing that was great about the film is they kind of give you a little misdirection in the beginning, because they're talking about this predator and you're thinking, oh, wow, we're talking about Weinstein already. It turns out they're talking about Trump, as Katie was pointing out earlier.
Yeah, they made that very clear. It was so much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a danger too, that a lot of the women who are, at least somewhat complicit, sometimes they're held more accountable than the men themselves. Like there's a great book on this I recently read. It is called Complicit by Winnie M. Lee, and it's from the perspective, a woman wrote it who actually did experience sexual assault and did work in the film industry, and she kind of writes about the complexity of this main character who is an aspiring producer whose production company agrees to work with this Weinstein-like billionaire. And it does go into like how she was a victim too, but she was also like, she has to realize that she also was kind of a participant in this. And women got hurt because she didn't do enough to protect them. So,
well, there are a lot of.
I feel like, I just feel like the girl boss villain is everywhere now, and it's almost like we're trying to blame women rather than hold the people who are kind of the architects of this accountable, the main architects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of women who work for these people. I mean, one of the problems I had with the film is we see Weinstein a little bit here and there, and we don't actually see his face, which is fine. But what about all the people who worked for him, who knew this was going on and didn't do anything about it? We don't even get them on. I wanted to see some of them on screen say, well, should I tell him that the scale is here, or should I tell him, should I not? For them to have that quandary of their own of, I know what he's doing, I don't want him to do it to another one. What should I do, kind of thing? Because there are a lot of employees who I'm sure who put in very suspicious situations.
Yeah. Well, structurally, I just found it interesting.
Yeah, I liked I like that approach, but Mike, what were you going to say?
On screen.
Well, I was just saying structurally it worked with the whole Trump thing because you get how much bigger this thing is. And also, it's ironic, right? As I leave the theater on the phone, it says Trump runs for re-election. But it's
first news
good to have. I know, it was just, I hate irony like that. I just but it just proves how important this story is, but also how this is just the tip of the iceberg. We still have a man who's running for president who may have raped a 13-year-old girl, and apparently people didn't care until someone saw results and someone go to jail. I mean, that was the whole motivation for Meghan's character, because her case with Trump didn't go anywhere. Her expose on it, I should say. And Trump ended up winning, and it wasn't until Jodi Kantor comes along to reel him back in because she said something along the lines of, I've exposed predators before, I've made the work environment a safer place to be at. It's at particular locations, with particular people she had to deal with, and that kind of reels you into the story. But still, with all that, there were some structural issues for me. I think this is the best way to go about a movie about Weinstein, where it doesn't go into, graphic dramatics or anything like that. It is all about the words and the victims and their names and why names matter more than numbers. But I still wonder, even after this film, is Hollywood going to change much, or are they just kind of saying, oh, no, Harvey's bad and we respect your opinion, and then just go back to doing whatever they want?
Well, I proved that they are going back to doing what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of films that were shelved because people were called out during the Me Too movement that are now coming out in 2020, 2021, 2022 that are still, these people that are doing this stuff now are coming back to work because I guess we've forgotten all those horrible things you can say. And if you're saying not the dramatic work, it's like I said with Blonde, I don't need to see someone get raped to believe that they were raped.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm glad they did not do in the film. There's plenty of statements. There's plenty of coercion. Go ahead.
Yeah. There's more of a choice now. I feel like there's more of a need to hold people accountable because, pre-2016, could any of us have imagined the kind of reckoning that these men would face. Like, you could say you didn't have a choice back then, because, like, to use one example, when there were Woody Allen films, I didn't know how to discuss the past, his allegations, and now I feel like that's more of an option. I've opted out of his films since, but the fact that I would feel like anyone would care, I feel like lends a greater responsibility to us all to keep talking about these things.
It's also easier now to use a cell phone, a recorder, to be wary of those situations and have the evidence, where a lot of women back then did not. And so it is, she said, he said, she said. And that, how do you prove that?
Well, and also when the women would come forward, I mean, the amount of money and resource that would be used to use as a smear campaign on them and not look at the evidence on the men should have been an obvious, with any of the judicial system, but it wasn't. It's like they would rather drop the case because of like, oh, well, this woman was probably a prostitute. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she just said that this person did this and she has this tape, this recorded, but you're going to go with that. And then, they'd rather do a payout, which then that can't be used in any sort of, because you have to sign the NDA and the payout. And it's all of these things that have been coming out. But I remember bringing up stuff regarding Bill Cosby and people thinking like, oh, well, these women, they just want money and all that stuff. I'm like, there's a number of women. Why are we just all of a sudden? But thing is, it took it took Burgess, what is it? The comedian, something Burgess. It took him to say that during a comedy special, that's the one that it's like actually made people like, wake up to the fact of what Bill Cosby was doing. And it's like, or maybe the dozens of women that have been saying this, that should have been the point. I mean, I'm sick and tired of this stuff. Like, people aren't listening to us. It's like, we don't want the fame. We don't want this paycheck that's not going to pay for my psychiatric bills for a year down the line. And then you still can't get a job. And that's the bullshit that needs to stop. I mean, along with all the harassment and the coercion and the sexual assault and all that stuff. It's like, stop trying to like have all of these excuses of why women are doing this and maybe look at the actual men that are actually doing it.
Well,
There was
shame because feel that they don't want that brought upon themselves under any circumstances, no matter how bad they feel. Now, no matter how much it ruins their career, they don't. A lot of women just don't want to even deal with it. Take the money and run.
Yeah.
Is it hard to watch a Miramax film?
But some of it you can't really legislate some of this, because, like, just to use Ashley Judd as example, obviously she couldn't legally speak out, and she was originally up for, like, again, use an example, like the role of Arwen in Lord of the Rings. She was being considered, but apparently just in a formal conversation, Weinstein told Peter Jackson, who apparently didn't know anything about this, I wouldn't cast her. She can be the scarlet letter D. Difficult. So one guy says something to another at a party, and they might be well-meaning and not know the context of a situation, and they won't hire you. So how do you legislate that? You can only do it by maybe talking about it and having this in the air and making them think, is there more to this? Yeah.
Is it hard to watch like a Miramax produced film now with Weinstein's name on it? Because there's so many, and I'm trying to remember the actress who said this, but she said, I'm not going to erase the history of work that was under his name, but I would hold him accountable, I think. I don't know if I can watch Miramax movies just fine, but then again, I kind of grew up on some of them. What about someone who didn't, and they know about this guy who produced like basically all of the movies from that? Like he produced like all the independent movies. He ran Hollywood.
Yeah.
Do you have difficulty seeing Miramax films now, given the context of the Weinstein case?
I have difficulty seeing his name in the credits, and you know who, and just thinking briefly like who like ended their career, or what happened to someone on that set or while that was being made. I mean, I'll always have different memories of the actual films that have nothing to do with him. And, you know, those performance, it's not like he directed them. He just gave them money. I don't think, and, you know, I know he did have some influence on the casting, obviously, which sucks. But yeah, seeing there, I've actually been to a screening where you see Miramax or you see Weinstein's name and the crowd just boos. And I want more of that. I mean, that's the thing that we need. It's like, again, holding these people accountable and not forgetting. Like this, he's a son of a bitch, and now it's even more. He's even more so, and now it's like, oh no, my back, all this stuff. It's like he's just a giant. I just could go on with like expletives and adjectives I like to that are very negative that I would say about him, but I'm not, because why waste the time? But for me, yeah, I love being in a theater, and when Miramax or his name comes up, the entire crowd boos. So I love the movie, but hate his name.
My problem with it is if I see his name there with Miramax, I wonder how many people worked on that film and saw something and didn't say something.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who in Hollywood where there was some montage video of like actors and actresses thanking Harvey Weinstein and also making jokes about how confrontational he is. And yeah, it kind of makes you like there's people who are staunch defenders of Woody Allen who will still work on his movies, and he still gets to make movies. Everyone does. Is Hollywood really going to change after Weinstein? I don't really see them doing that.
There's too many variables.
Well, I don't know. The thing is, like, you have to acknowledge anyone who wants to learn about cinematic history, like those movies are kind of a must watch in a way. But how I look at it is, yeah, I grew up on these movies, like I have the memories of them. And the great thing about art, I'm still unsure, is that you can create something, even if you're a terrible person, there's such potential to create something greater and better than yourself. And what I try to do is like kind of the same thing when I have the urge to listen to a misogynistic pop song. Is kind of after that, I try to watch something by a woman that was made by women, that's pro women. I consider it a form of self-defense, because I don't think in my lifetime I'll ever be able to escape the misogynistic undercurrent of our culture and, you know, the racism and homophobia, stuff like that. But now there's more of a choice. I can include more progressive, really good stuff that's worth investing in, worth watching, and worth spreading the word about. So so there are ways to kind of defend ourselves, to, you know, to use a phrase that might be kind of over dramatic. So I always try and do that.
We're more aware,
because they're not the whole story. They don't define the narrative. Don't let them.
Right. We're more aware, fortunately, because of these kinds of things that have come up with everybody along the way. But that doesn't mean that it's not still happening. And that is a big problem. How do you stop it?
Yeah.
We just have to keep pushing, I think. Just keep pushing in whatever way we can.
And you need to keep encouraging people to actually speak their truth. Like, don't feel, I know it's frightening, and I know you're scared, and I know you're thinking, hey, this person knows more than me, or they're older than me, and all that stuff. If you think something's wrong, say it. Like, I mean, and that's the thing. It's that you need, I know it takes the courage to do it. And it's scared, believe me, that's the reason why he always targeted these people, these women who were like in their early 20s, who were just starting, who were just, you know, as it says in the movie, just getting their voice. It's like, get your voice, say it, and no matter what.
Likely to blame themselves.
Yeah. because they double think, well,
They're the
maybe this
most
is
likely
something I
people.
did, or I shouldn't have gone in this room, or I shouldn't. It's like, did I lead them on? It's like, no, because the fact is, if this is an older person, they know better. They know that they shouldn't have done that. And that's what they're counting on, is for you to feel that shame of what's going on, and don't let them. So that's the thing. It just, make sure people just speak up. Record everything. That's another thing now, for everybody. It's like, record everything.
Everyone's a lawyer.
Yeah. And, make just, if you feel like something is off, make sure you tell someone, document it. It's documentation, it's everything. That's the thing. But there need to be more studio heads that are female. How many, since Sherry Lansing, are how many studios have female studio heads? And not enough.
Unfortunately, that might not be the whole solution, because some studio heads, like there was a roundtable of actresses that were saying, like, some female heads are going to be even worse, because as women they more feel like hey, I can do this and not face consequences, because I can always say, no, I wouldn't do that to women. They're more interested in those, for lack of a better word, those pats on the head, that money, like getting in good with the system.
Well, it's a power trip.
Yeah,
it's definitely.
And then call them out too.
I can only imagine.
Do you think Hollywood now is embracing more female filmmakers, DPs, and producers, etc., etc.? Because they started to add more, but it's still prominently a male-dominated industry, especially
But
I'm sorry.
That's what I think. People in the industry are more aware that they look better if they do get that diversity going in all realms. It's not only women and men, but it's, Asian, Black, Hispanic, the whole thing. But it still has a long way to go. And there are films that are doing all women, and, to try and make up for it too. And we'll have to see how that pans out. It's right now, I think it's, there are several films out there that are all women, and I think they're fine. They're excellent. But it just depends on your talent. Let's talk about people for their talent, not necessarily anything else.
Right.
Yes.
There's go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I know The Woman King is killing it at the box office. I know for me, some of my favorite horror films of the year have been directed by women, and they're excellent. And it's and that's the thing. It's give these people, give them the chance. It's men have been given these chances at huge studio films and franchises, and I want to see the same thing happen to women that have that same talent and aren't given that same chance. And I know a number of studios with certain films, I'm not going to name them, but I feel like they almost purposely implode them. They'll start smear campaigns and stuff like that before the film even comes out, to see, well, we gave her this chance, but look at this. It's the film hasn't even come out, and you've all of a sudden released all this information regarding it why would that happen unless you're trying to torpedo it? And it's then why are you doing that? And I feel like that happens more to women directors than it does to males. And I just give people the chance, give the people the chance, the same to succeed and to fail. It's if we don't do that, then you won't know. And I just, sorry, I'm just rambling now. I'm just on.
You're okay. No, it's good. I like what you were saying.
Yeah.
All the time.
The backlash to "Don't Worry, Darling" is, well, there's holding people accountable, and then there's that.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of people in the industry who, diversity and inclusion is kind of trendy, but I also feel like they're leaning into the backlash because they just don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of in the movie a lot of prejudging where reviews come out way ahead of the, like you say, than the movie comes out. It's already prejudged. Oh, I'm not going to see that. I read the review. I'm not going to see that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to judge for yourself what a movie is like, depending on what the subject is and who's in it and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because a movie emotionally affects people on a different level.
Absolutely.
You know, sometimes it could be universal, sometimes it could just be one person. It's all dependent on the picture and the material. Like if it's a Spielberg film, probably I don't think everyone will like his newest one, but I think a lot of people. I thought it was beautiful, but most people.
I like the Fablemans.
Yeah, just the music. It's John Williams' last score. It's his last score, and just like if you listen to the music, because it was from the beginning, it feels like a goodbye letter when you listen to the soundtrack. It's like every time I turn it on, I was like walking my dog, listening to Fablemans, and I'm like, I gotta turn this off. I'm gonna start crying in public and look weird, just because it's so good. But I'm wondering because I've had a friend in a very strange situation. She worked for a guy who got me too'd. It wasn't even all in the news, but he did. And because of that, she couldn't find work in the industry, you know, and she didn't do anything or I don't know what's going on her end, but I'm wondering if there's a lot of people who are going to lose their jobs or have lost their jobs, I should say, because they worked for or with Weinstein, even if like they were repulsed by what he did, or maybe some didn't even know.
I mean, I would say yes. And I feel like there was something that came out that all the people who worked with him, who had the NDAs that they had to sign, who couldn't speak up, that they had like a almost like a class action meeting that's saying like, okay, so can we talk about the things that we couldn't talk about now because we want to get this out? And I mean, that was one of the things that they brought up. And she said that a number of these assistants, that if they found out that they worked with Harvey and then aren't working with him anymore, that was one of the things. It's like, well, why aren't you still working there? Like, that's supposed to be the best place to work. So something must be wrong with you. And you don't want to get into the fact like, oh, because he did this to my friend, or I saw him do this, or because he apparently has a chronic masturbation problem that he can't get over, which it's like, my God, what is wrong with you? I mean, countlessly, Jesus. How much? I mean, I would think you'd be dehydrated by the amount of times he was doing that. God, and so gross. The fact I can't even. But yeah, there's, I mean, all those people. So I mean, yeah, I feel like once a Me Too, it's almost the repercussions that this is a shitty person you worked for. They did shitty things. So make sure you have some other skill or go about that. If they get booted, then you're going to get feel that too.
Yeah.
One of the I think one of
and
the
it was.
scenes.
I think it was more than just the money, though. Like,
Yeah.
you get access to all these insane premiere parties, all that, just all the access and the like ego massage that goes with that. So I feel like that's another reason why people had all the motivation to turn away.
Yeah. What are you gonna say when? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Talking about the movie, though, one of the most effective scenes, I think, was when they went up to the door of the person who was having a party, who had worked for him, and the former employee, and she just closed the door.
Yep.
She didn't say a word. All she did was close the door. It was very effective. I didn't think a lot of the things in the film were as effective. I thought that running after, this side shot when Megan is going through the newsroom and you're just seeing her run was not effective. I thought it was not a productive scene. I also thought that, there's investigative reporting is a lot of phone calls, but I think that it could have been shortened up a little bit and shown a little bit more. We got the reporters' responses, but maybe seeing the other end or something like it could have made it a little bit more dynamic. I thought it was a little boring to see them on the phone all the time like that.
Yeah.
From one to another. I thought that the film could have been a little more dynamic, having done it myself, but it certainly is important, and it certainly is something we need out there to show that this is still going on, and we got to get it stopped. And I don't know how. We've got lawyers who are working on it, but will it? How many more are there out there?
Yeah, because I think we've all worked somewhere where there's this toxic masculine situation. I know from working on, like, when I was just a PA on some films, a lot of guys would kind of have this weird comparison with each other over how many hours they've worked, and they just be saying sleazy things you'd expect a bro to say, and they'd always act like that's all right. Like the best set I actually worked on was directed by a woman, and it went on to Sundance and almost got nominated for an Oscar, and that was just for like a short film, and she was like the best director I ever had. But when we do you think we'll ever see a movie on Ronan Farrow's investigative journaling? I don't know if we do, because I feel like this is kind of like the Weinstein movie, and it was like the best way to do, because we knew that subject was going to be tackled. We just didn't know if it would be in good taste or not. So with having said that, do you think they will make a movie about Ronan Farrow going after Trump, and they tie it to Woody Allen and all that?
Well, first of all, I think that Ronan Farrow is an excellent reporter as well, and these women, Megan and
Megan Talley and Jody.
They did something in 2.5 years is amazing to stick with a subject, and for the New York Times to let them go after it. So I mean, my hat's off to them, because they did it. And there were plenty of times when I'm sure they wanted to throw in the towel. I thought they dwelled a little bit too much on the family life. I think they could have tightened that up a little bit. And not that I think it was wonderful what they went through as starting new families, doing it as well. That's not easy.
Yeah.
But
sorry. Oh no, sorry. I kind of liked the family stuff because it kind of personalized.
It did.
The reason that they're going after Harvey Weinstein. It's like, this is more personal than someone who's doing a story on Watergate, or even a group of people doing a story on the Vietnam War. This is something that personally affects the reporters, where their lives are in danger, if they don't do it. The movie closest to this with journaling that I really like is The Insider with Al Pacino and Russell Crowe. And that movie's also reliant on phone calls. All of them are, because I'm guessing as a reporter, you're always on the phone. But yeah, like dramatically, it doesn't work very well all the time.
No,
and that was kind of like one of my points in my review. It's like, I think this is the most tasteful way you could do the Weinstein movie. We all knew it was going to happen. We all knew it was going to come out, but we're like, what is it going to be? Is it going to be like an LMN film, where you just have someone doing like an SNL like impersonation of Weinstein? And luckily it wasn't that. It was something that was measured. It seemed like it took its time, and it came out to be a difficult film to watch, given how many horrible sexual encounters you have to listen to all the time. But it's certainly an essential one where you can show this to people and prove that some actions do have consequences.
Right. I have no problem with the fact that I just thought it could have been tightened up some. Yeah. And the perfect husbands that they had were amazing. They let them just take off whenever they needed to go find somebody. Definitely. But it wasn't as dynamic as Spotlight, I didn't think. I think it could have been more dynamic and gotten your heart racing a little bit when, on the chase. The scene where the limo comes around the corner as she's walking in the dark was too short. It wasn't directed well. It should have been a slow, and then she looks back kind of a thing, and then maybe kind of slowly goes away and tries to get away without being noticed. I just thought it was not quite realistic.
Yeah, because as a journalist, I was wondering, like, when you're watching parts, you're like, that would never happen. That would never happen. If you ever had those moments pop up in your head.
I thought that Carey Mulligan and Zoe
really
Kazan
just trying to pull back and just like show a more realistic approach. I think in a way they took their cues from Spotlight, but decided to go quieter.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. It's spotlight, but it's much more personal to the reporters because as women who are journalists going after a sexual predator
Exactly.
who has a history of
And who
uh
had daughters.
yeah, oh my God, Jesus. He might have more and we don't even know,
Mhm.
considering what he did. But yeah, this is the best route you could take with this kind of subject material. You didn't want to make a movie that had exploitive scenes of horrific on-screen violence or something like that. Or, you could take the direction of someone. One idea I thought is they could just make a movie about someone who was affected by him and you just tell their story. Because with the journalism thing, it feels a little disconnected, although it is connected, if you know what I mean. But having
Mhm.
said that, uh, oh yeah, was Lance Marov or Irving Reitman, the two people who worked with Weinstein, bad people? Did they know what he was doing? Because there's that one scene where Jody's talking to Irving at the dinner table, and she told him all these things that Harvey did, and then there was like this smoking gun piece of evidence, and then that's when Irving handed the phone over to Jody, and he just said, "Do what you want with it." Like, were these guys in bad situations who just didn't know how to get out of it, or were they just shitty people for even working with this guy?
Well, it's like Weisselberg with Trump. He knew
Yeah,
a lot of the things that were going on behind the
Well,
scenes.
they probably didn't want to know. I mean,
yeah,
and Harvey was getting old. His prestige was lessening just a little bit, and it was right in the middle of this moment we were talking about this, and people felt genuinely in danger. So it was a great time to do this story when they were most likely probably to say something.
yeah.
True, true. When it got to that point, when it goes to court, like the Trump case did, and like
Mhm.
Cohen and Trump with with Irwin and Weinstein. I mean, there are a number of cases like that where they go after the people who work for them because they know where the bodies are buried, so to speak.
Yep. They
Mhm.
know where the skeletons in the closet are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, meanwhile, you have like remember that SNL skit music video they did about the
Mhm.
harassment? Like, all these big,
Oh,
powerful, here's a secret every girl knows. Oh, this been the damn world. That kind of thing.
yeah.
Well, I
It's
mean,
just that other people are having to face it. They can't wall themselves off from it anymore about the effect a lot of their actions have, or they're less able to.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think of the performances in the movie? As always, Carrie Mulligan is great. What was the movie
Mhm.
she did last where she witnessed?
promising young woman.
Yes, like she's kind of on a
Ugh.
streak.
I love
With
that.
She was good. I did not like that one.
I loved it.
I love that movie.
I thought it was I liked it. I remember I saw it, I'm like, wow,
I
this
hate
is
it.
one of the best movies. Yeah. Well,
I prefer the French film Revenge if you want to see female revenge and stuff and subversion of sexism.
yeah. Well, that's the beauty of film criticism and film
But
in
yeah, I guess
general is
that's
that
a
we have
for
different
another
opinions
panel.
and yeah,
Yeah.
we all see things
Mhm.
different ways. And I think if everybody liked the same thing, movies would be pretty boring
No, I thought
because they'd all be the same thing then.
their performances were really good, and they worked well together. I mean,
Yeah,
they
Yeah.
bounced off each other very well.
Yeah, Zoe who
very well.
yeah, well Zoe what's her name? Zoe Kazan? Is that
Zoe
Zoe?
Zoe Kazan.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she wasn't as good as Carrie Mulligan, but then again, Carrie Mulligan is hey Minnie, I'm on a podcast. Carrie Mulligan is a
Mhm.
very versatile actress, and you can really get the pain her character is feeling, the letdown after everybody elected Trump, and like pretty much the whole world just gave a middle finger to sexual harassment suits. She brought a lot into her performance,
Mhm.
but she didn't have to be overly dramatic or crying or anything like that. The other one, not so much. I like the guy who played Harvey. I don't know who played his lawyer Irving, but he did a good job. Or I shouldn't say Irving. Lance. Lance was the guy. He did a good job at being kind of like he's
Smarmy.
a sleazebag, but he's kind of nice. He seems like a guy who was just put in the wrong place at the wrong time. But because this is a movie, but really who stands out are the people who play the victims. They all have their kind of big moments where they get to tell their story and expose to the audience what's been happening to them. And a lot of the film is reliant on them, but luckily it works out real well.
I'm interested in finding out what you thought of Patricia Clarkson's performance. I thought it was a little laid back for what was going on.
Yeah, she kind
I
of
thought her knuckleses stole the show more than her performances. Her performance did. I thought Andre Braugher was great, and I want to talk about score. I thought the score for this was gorgeous with the cellos that are both beautiful yet haunting, yet soothing. I mean, it just so many layers with the score. Carey Mulligan's performance, playing Megan Twohey, going from getting pregnant while she's working on the Trump case, and then he gets elected. She's going through postpartum depression while she's going through all of this, gathering the information about Weinstein and showing that range that she had, but also that scene where she goes off on those jerks in the bar, which is amazing.
That's great.
Because that's something that really should be stopped as much as everything else. Just when someone says they're busy having a conversation, that should be your key to butt out.
Shut up.
And I think,
I'm guessing the other two women we've all had to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
The other women.
Yeah, it's
the same.
Yeah. It's something I can sympathize with, but not personally relate to, But which was the hard part of writing my review. I'm like, oh boy, I hope this sounds okay, But yeah, I mean, luckily, the movie did move along at a pretty good pace. The performances were pretty good. I don't really have much more to say about this film, other than if you wanted to go see it, I would go check it out. This is the most tasteful way you can do the Weinstein movie. And thank you guys for coming on. Was there, I guess when we leave, would you guys recommend this film?
I think yes, most definitely.
It's an important.
I think it's an important film that should be seen, and that it has some performances that definitely could be award worthy. But no, it's a topic that should be seen, and kudos to Ashley Judd for, portraying herself in this, because I know that could not have been an easy decision, but it's the right decision that she did. So I'm thankful that she did that.
It was a gutsy move.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if she's in Hollywood anymore, but I had this weird moment happen where I was at work and she was doing the speech they show in the movie. Like, I am a nasty woman. And then my boss, who's my boss at the time, who was like this ex-military tough guy, just said in the other room, hey, could you put your headphones on? When I was watching that, I'm like, okay, that's kind of the mindset a lot of people still have. And it just kind of proved just in a little minuscule way how much work we have to go forward. But the importance of movies is that you expose, just like the journalist does, the world to the problems that we face, whether it be sexual predators or war or what have you. And this was the best way to make the Weinstein movie. I keep calling it the Weinstein movie because that's, kind of what it is. It was this movie where we didn't know how it would turn out in the end. We didn't know if it was going to be exploitive. And luckily it wasn't, It was written by the two journalists, Megan Twohey and is it Twohey or Twohey? I don't know. But
I think it's Twohey and Joy Cantor. I'm going to have to interrupt you though, Mike, though. I don't want to call it the Weinstein movie. I really don't. This is not about him. This is about the women.
Yeah.
This is about the women. And that's why it's called She Said.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, but his name is just a footnote and should be squished like a bug.
Yeah.
But it's about the women who came forward and were brave enough to do that. And that's what this movie is.
Yeah.
Just wanna say that.
No, you're right. You're right. And I guess that wasn't the most well-worded way to say it. I was just wondering what the movie about his case would be. And luckily it's a movie about the victims and how they finally were able to get justice for all the years of abuse they had to go through, not only when they worked with him, but when they lost their careers and everything because of him. But having said that, guys, let's see where can we catch you guys at. Feel free to plug your stuff before we take off. Andrea, where can we find you?
Well, I do run a film festival, the Film Girl Film Festival. I'm on hiatus in a moment. You can catch my stuff on my website, A Real One's Own. I also write stuff for Inverse, Wealth of Geeks, and CG Magazine. So yeah, catch me on social media at A Real One's Own. That's REEL, or my site, Real One's Own. I'm around.
Okay. The blonde in front, where can we find you? I'm going to guess the name of the website, but
Yeah, you can find me on The Blonde in Front on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then someone on my website, it's kind of having it was kind of hacked a little bit, but I'm momentarily putting stuff on there. And then you can also catch me on the podcast for The Blonde in Front of Fear on Radio of Horror and Postmortem Radio, as well as guesting on a number of different podcasts and blogs. Around the interwebs, and mostly about horror. You'll find me there at any film festival and convention.
Cool. And Linda, where can we find you at?
Well, Linda and Al Lerner at moviesandshakers.com. I'm also a member of Women's Film Critics Circle, International Documentary Association, Chicago Indie Critics, and we have our own YouTube channel. Subscribe.
Woo-woo. Yeah.
A lot of interviews. We just covered the Chicago Film Festival and the Chicago International Film Festival and Austin Film Festival. We still have a lot of interviews to put up, and they're pretty much fun with some of the movies that are coming out now. So moviesandshakers.com. Go for it.
Oh, that's amazing. And if you guys want to find my work, it's at ypareviews.com. The YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree. Yeah, I did Chicago International Film Festival as well. It was a collection of amazing movies. But yeah, if you want to find me on anything, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as long as Twitter's still around until it, burns to the ground. Well, you can find me at YPA Reviews. The YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree. Go see She Said. It's actually, I'd say it's a more important movie to see than Christmas Story. My dog agrees.
There you go.
All right, guys, thank you so much for this. And yeah.
Thank you guys.
And we'll see you later.
Bye, ladies.
Bye. As soon as
my headphones.